Hey, everybody. Good to be back on here with you guys here on Talking Dogs. Thank you guys for the ones that are always here. I appreciate you guys for kind of checking in. And we haven't done this in a few weeks, couple of months. So better late than never, I guess. But a lot to talk about today. Big few days for Mississippi State baseball. A lot has hinged on this draft for the Bulldogs moving forward. I mean, this is a team that desperately needs to get back to its winning ways. They won the national championship right back there. They're trying to get back to that. They want to know another one of those dog piles. Nobody on that team, nobody on that staff wants to feel like they did after this season. And we came in here after the season ended. We had a season-ending talk in here. You guys can go check that out on this on I guess this channel. And we talked about that, and one of the things that I mentioned was there's not a person that feels worse about what happened for Mississippi State this year than Chris Lemonis. And there is not a person that's going to work harder to get Mississippi State back to where they need to be. And I think you're seeing the results of that. There's already been a strong push with the signing class to get those guys to stay on campus. That was the goal coming into the draft, was to keep the bulk of that class, and you only wanted to lose 2, maybe 3 at the most from that signing class. The transfer portal is big for Mississippi State as well, and they've already gotten some key players, but they've also been kind of waiting out this draft to see who gets drafted and maybe who's still left behind to go after. And now the work really begins for Mississippi State, but a huge week in terms of the signing class and the future of Mississippi State's roster. This was a top 10 signing class coming in for Chris Lemonis, number 6 in the country. One of the top classes Mississippi State signed in the last decade. And Chris Lemonis had 5 top 100 players according to Perfect Game, which you can argue those rankings. I mean, they're different in a lot of different places, and there's some things that Perfect Game can do better. But these players are highly touted that Mississippi State has ranked inside that top 100. And those players were Jet Williams, shortstop out of Texas, Drangelo Gente, who I still got to figure out how to say his last name. He was a big part of that group as well. A guy that could throw with both arms, played shortstop, could hit. Just a really talented player. Ross Highfield from Madison Central, the catcher. Dakota Jordan, outfielder from Jackson Academy, was in there. Bradley Lofton was in there. So just a really talented high school class. Then you add in a player like Colby Holcomb from Northeast Mississippi Community College, and there's a lot of impact guys in that class. But when you recruit players like that, and this is the fishbowl that you live in, when you're recruiting players like that and you're trying to get the best talent in the country, you're going to have to deal with this draft every single year. Mississippi State's dealt with it. They've had 7 players, signees, drafted in the first round since 2014. Jet Williams was the 7th guy to do that. And, of course, only one of those has made it to campus, and that was JT Ginn. An extremely rare occurrence for a first-round draft pick to come to school, and also pretty rare for guys that are picked inside the top 10 rounds to come to school. So you can expect Jet Williams is going to sign with the Mets. Don't expect him to come to school, and nobody has really expected him to come to school for the better part of nearly a year. So that was going to happen. Jet Williams was going to get drafted. Logan Tanner and Landon Sims were going to get drafted on the first day. You expected to lose those guys. You pretty much expected to lose Preston Johnson, Brad Cumbest, pretty much Cam James, maybe Jackson Fristow, Casey Hunt, and those guys all got drafted. The big miss was Bill Knight, the outfielder from Mercer, who was drafted in the 10th round. That was a shot for Mississippi State. That was a starting center fielder for the Bulldogs. He was going to be in probably the top 4 of the lineup. Really good hitter, and that was a shot for State. But they have some outfield options. And Cam James has started to become clear that he might come back to school. He was drafted in the 16th round. I think he's going to sign, but we'll see what happens there. Casey Hunt and Jackson Fristow, they were drafted in the 12th round. Still have to wait to see if those guys sign. I believe Jackson Fristow will sign. Casey Hunt still up in the air. I'm leaning towards him signing, but that's not determined yet. But the big news coming out of the draft was this high school class stayed almost completely intact. You didn't lose anybody that you expected to keep. Durangelo announced on Monday that he was going to stick with Mississippi State. Now, he was drafted in the 18th round by the Brewers, but that was kind of a courtesy pick. They didn't have the pool money anyway to get him, and he accepted that. But he's going to come to school. He announced actually on Tuesday that he was going to follow through with that. That's huge for Mississippi State. You get a guy that can throw in the low to mid 90s from both arms, excuse me. And he can also hit and play in the field. I don't expect him to play shortstop or middle infield at Mississippi State, but you never know. He's capable of doing that. So it was huge to keep him. The big guys that you kept were him, Bradley Lofton from DeSoto Central, and Colby Holcomb, as we mentioned earlier. Bradley Lofton is one of the top left-handers out of high school in the draft. Really kind of improved his stock over the year. Didn't go to the combine, which I think probably hurt his chances a little bit. But he was one of those that had a really high number. I was hearing 2 million the other day. I talked to a source within his camp on Friday or Saturday, and they said that he had a really high asking price, and it was around 2 million, which is going to be first round, early second round money. Now you can get that money in the later rounds if a team has it, but nobody was willing to hit that price, and he was perfectly fine with that. His family's fine with him coming to school. I think he's a player that is obviously going to improve his stock at Mississippi State. Went undrafted, but that was his choice. He could have been drafted in the top 10 rounds, could have been drafted later. It was his choice to not be drafted. So he's going to be drafted at some point over the next 3 years. And I think he's an immediate impact guy. I mean, again, a guy that can come in there and really has a great changeup. He has a really good breaking ball, a pretty good fastball, too, for a guy coming out of high school. He's going to be throwing 92, 94 from the left side with a chance to improve that even more. So I think they got a major get with Bradley Lofton coming to school. And Colby Holcomb, too. He struck out 115 guys in 65 innings this year. The pitcher of the year in JUCO in the state of Mississippi. Just had a huge season for Northeast. He was another one that had a high asking price. I was hearing a first or second round money he was asking for. There was a lot of teams talking to him on day 2 and 3, but nobody could hit his number. Both of those guys have the potential to be starting pitchers for Mississippi State, at the very least, coming out of the bullpen and helping the Bulldogs on the weekend. So really exciting stuff to get those guys. And we'll delve into a lot of that with some of your questions here as we go along. We'll be here as long as you guys want to be here. Probably at least 30 minutes. I got to get on another show here shortly for 247. But I wanted to talk to you guys about this draft before I did that. We'll start off with Taylor and right into what we were just talking about. More likely to start on the weekends, Holcomb or Lofton? I'm going to lean towards Lofton as far as next year's concerned, just because he's a left-hander. He could mix things up for you on the weekend, because I have a feeling you're going to have 2 right-handers on the weekend already, and Lofton would be able to kind of mix it up a little bit. Holcomb could very easily do that as well. At the end of the day, if Mississippi State's able to somehow get Paul Skeens, I don't think either one of those guys are going to be starting, because I think the starting rotation is going to be Skeens on Friday, Cade Smith on Saturday, and Landon Gartman on Sunday. But a lot of that's going to be determined in the offseason, how those guys do. I think Lofton can be a midweek pitcher, a starter on Tuesday nights, and can come back and help you and be maybe a matchup guy on the weekends, because there's not a lot of left-handed matchup guys from Mississippi State. He could be a guy that fills that role that Pico Cone had this past year. I don't want to put lofty expectations, no pun intended there, I guess, on Lofton, for next year, but I think he's going to be really good for Mississippi State within the next couple of seasons, and I think he helps you next year in some form or fashion. Holcomb, you should be expecting him to make an immediate impact. He's a JUCO guy. Hopefully, you get something out of him very similar to Preston Johnson when Preston came in and transferred his first season. We'll see if that happens, but I really like what Holcomb has in his arsenal, and he's got some good stuff. He's got starter potential as well. Boy Scout Bob, do you think Cameron James comes back and plays outfield and Luke Hancock comes back and plays catcher? Right now, I'm leaning towards Luke Hancock returning. He could decide to do independent baseball. That's an option. He could be a free agent. This is basically the same thing that happened to him last year. He had some free agent deals late in the process, and the NIL at Mississippi State was going to probably pay him more money than he could get as a free agent. I think the same is going to be there for him this year. I think he just got engaged, so he's got a family to think about. It's really going to be up to him. He's got that extra year, and I think he can improve his stock by coming back because catcher is his more natural position. He's got a chance to play a full season as a starting catcher for Mississippi State for the most part. I think he would be your starting catcher because I don't think you need to put all of that on your freshman right away. You have two really good freshman catchers coming in with Bryce Hubbard and Ross Highfield, but I think Luke Hancock bridges the gap there. You don't have to put too much on those guys. You can platoon them a little bit. Highfield can play in the midweeks. Bryce Hubbard can play in the midweeks. Those guys can get some DH pinch hitter reps as well. But best case scenario for Mississippi State is you have a season where you have a veteran catcher that's able to catch for most of the season, and you bring those guys along slowly. You don't throw them in the fire. I think that's the best thing that can happen. So I think that Luke comes back. Just throwing darts right now. That's just my opinion. He could very easily go to the next level and go ahead and get his career started. He's not getting any younger. He's not going to be an intriguing prospect next year just because of his age. But I do think next year he has a better chance of getting drafted as opposed to this year. He's played 2 years as first baseman when his more natural position is catcher. I think showing that could go a long way. But it's going to be up to him, and he's already been here for 4 years already. So, and then with Cam James, I feel very similar. He's actually got a chance to improve his stock much more next year than Hancock because he actually still has a leverage year. Now, he's getting up there in age, but he actually still has a leverage year. And on top of that, scouts want him in the outfield. He was drafted at shortstop by Tampa Bay, which was really kind of interesting to me because I was hearing during the season that a lot of scouts wanted him to play in the outfield. And that's why he played some outfield for Mississippi State this year. But more reps there, I think, would be huge for him. I think that he's going to sign, but that's another one that's just kind of up in the air. 16th round, I think he could be, anywhere from 12 down to, 8 to 12 next year if he has a really, really good season. And that's an intriguing thing that Mississippi State can use. He's got several weeks here to figure that out. I know he and his family love Mississippi State. But, some of these guys, he's been here for 3 years. That's kind of your thought process coming in is that you're going to be in college for 3 years and then you're moving on to the next level. And some of those guys are just ready to go. He could have gone last year after 2 seasons, but decided to come back, had that leverage year, obviously, this year. And some of those guys are just ready to go. So you can't really fault them if they do, but I think both of those players can improve their stock coming back. Adam McBrayer, do you think we get the pitcher that throws with both arms since he got drafted real late? Yeah, he's already announced that he's coming back. Or he's coming to school, I guess. So, yeah, he's coming. Boy Scout, why did Lou drop so low in the draft? There's a lot of things that happened behind the scenes in this draft. Don't pay attention to where players get drafted sometimes, especially high school players. A lot of it depends on negotiations, how much money that a team has. And a lot of times late in drafts, you're going to see these high school players get drafted, and sometimes college players as well. We've seen a lot of state college players and high school players drafted late in the draft, just kind of as a courtesy, kind of just a cool thing to have that they have no intentions of signing. Um, he was getting offers on Monday. He could have gotten drafted in the top 10 rounds, just like some of the others, but I don't think he was an extremely intriguing prospect for scouts just because of his size. A lot of these scouts were scared away by that 5'11" frame, which I always say, I mean, if you can throw a fastball 97 miles an hour with one arm and 92 with the other, I don't care if you're 5'6", but I get the tools part of it and the frame. I mean, those guys are looking at a lot more than I am. But if he can come in here and he can throw and be a issue for opposing offenses and eliminate kind of that matchup that coaches try to play with their batters, because when he comes in the ball game, he eliminates that, the switch hitter or the lefty righty matchup. I mean, he is the guy that holds the upper hand. If you start off in at bat, he gets to. You have to distinguish what side of the plate you're going to bat before the at bat, and you have to distinguish what side you're going to throw before the at bat. Once the at bat starts, you have to stay with whatever arm or whatever side of the plate you're batting. So he's going to be able to. He's going to know what arm he needs to throw, and he's going to switch it up. I mean, it's going to be tough. And if he's throwing strikes and he's able to be effective, I mean, this is a real weapon for Mississippi State. So I think that he was a guy that could have gotten drafted easily in the first 10 rounds. Maybe not really, really high as some people thought that he would be. He was a top 40 prospect in his class by perfect game. But I still think he would have gotten drafted yesterday. This was just kind of a lot of these teams kind of too, they kind of put their stamp on a player to follow. I think that's kind of what happened here. I don't think he was an 18th round pick, is what I'm saying. End zone, will Jet Williams make it to school? And I see the sarcastics. It would be nice. Hopefully we can get Groff in some pictures now. Yeah, Ethan Groff is a player to watch now. And he was one that the last time we did one of these things, we were talking about that. And I think somebody in here had said that Groff had been tied to Mississippi State. I was hearing that, before the season even ended and before he even entered the transfer portal. So I think there's some merit to that. I think Mississippi State is a possible destination for him. And it's kind of been like he's been focused on the draft and not really focused on that transfer portal and recruiting. Well, now he didn't get drafted, and this is about to heat up because I think he's going to be a hot commodity. State's got they really need to hit him hard. I think he can come in and be a starting center fielder for you next year, and top of the lineup kind of guy. He can answer a lot of questions for you. This is a guy that could really be a big time pickup for Mississippi State, and all of their efforts should be focused. I think not all of them, but a lot of their efforts should be focused on he and Paul Skeens at this point. These two are very important to Mississippi State next year. Mason, which team was hurt the most by the draft? Good question. I would say probably LSU. I still think their roster is going to be really good. They've done a good job in the portal, but they lost Pineda, the shortstop from Baylor. Their other shortstop they picked up in the portal, Carter Young, also got drafted. I don't know if he'll sign. Pineda will sign. They lost a pitcher from the portal in the draft. They lost, I think, 6 signees, something like that. So, I mean, they still have a really good class because they had 11 top 100 players, and they lost. I think they lost 5 of those, or they lost 6. I can't remember, but they lost several guys, but they still have some talent. They're still going to be pretty good, but not nearly as good as they hoped. Boy Scout Bob, any word on Paul Skeens? Still waiting. He is visiting. He's supposed to be visiting Arkansas. I think it's going to come down to Mississippi State, Arkansas, and LSU. And in the end, I think it will come down to State and Arkansas, but you just don't know. This guy's so meticulous. He's not like a lot of these other guys. He's not worried about NIL. He's really kind of a stand-up guy coming from the Air Force, one of those guys that could have probably gotten drafted out of high school relatively high, and he wanted to go to the Air Force. Real admirable kid, but just pivotal for Mississippi State. I mean, you just got to get this guy. He's your Friday night starter. If you need him to DH, if you need an extra bat in the lineup, he can do that and do it well. Probably a first-round pick next year as a utility guy, but mostly probably as a pitcher. He is a guy that changes your season next year for Mississippi State. You go from you're okay to being a contender in the SEC and nationally because you've got probably one of the best Friday night starters in the league, and you probably have a top end rotation next year with Cade Smith and Landon Gartman or somebody else. You have a lot of options there. You really need this guy. I mean, he is as big of a recruit for Mississippi State as they've had in a long time, and you got to go get him. Boy Scout, is Hunter Hines expected to play next season after having surgery? Yeah, I heard it was just a simple surgery. I don't think it's anything serious. It's something that's supposed to keep him out for a few weeks. Do you expect Lou to be a closer or middle reliever? I think probably a middle relief guy. He doesn't really have the I don't really see closer out of him. He doesn't really have that kind of makeup, in my opinion. I think Austin Nixon's probably going to be your closer. Or Aaron Nixon, sorry. And by the way, that's another guy that didn't get drafted that is going to help Mississippi State. Didn't even think about him, but he wasn't really a huge draft risk. But we'll see if he's able to help. The goal is to get him back into form what he was his freshman year at Texas. End zone. Steve just said KC wants top 5 round money. If that's the case, then I don't think he's going to get that in the 12th round. He's got a lot of potential, but he could get more next year possibly. But he's getting up there too. I mean, he's like 21, so he's getting up there a little bit in age. He's been here for 3 or 4 years, so he might be another one that just wants to go. I know he had a pretty good showing at some of those MLB Draft League games or whatever he was playing in. So we'll see. That's another guy that could really help you next year if he comes back. He's fully healthy for a year. I mean, that would be huge. Will Parker Sinnett and Tanner Leggett be back? Tanner Leggett will not. Sinnett should be. He didn't get drafted. We'll see what happens with him. Mason, which guy coming in will most likely be our next future first-round pick? Guy coming in, Bradley Lofton has that ability if he does what he's supposed to do. Skeens is the easy answer if he comes to Mississippi State. Lofton right now, I would say, is the best bet for that type of selection. He's a guy that he could be, lefty like Ethan Small that has some first-round stuff. Oh, I think many guys want to come back and get this bad taste from the season out of their mouth. Could be. A lot of guys, when you have something like this, when you have a season like this happen at a place like Mississippi State, there's a lot of guys that just they can't shake that feeling, and they want to do right by the fans. They want to do right by themselves, and that could be the case. You have such a great year like that national championship, and you come back. It's tough to have a season like that. And we'll see. I know this signing class is really close. These guys have kind of gotten together, and somebody mentioned on the board the other day. I thought it was a good point that they kind of remind you of some of these football recruiting classes. Excuse me. Live television, folks. But yeah, somebody mentioned, that this class kind of reminds you of some of those football signing classes, and that they get so close and they're so entrenched with each other. They want to be together, they want to play together, and they want to win together. Jet Williams was not really a part of that. He's kind of had his mindset on going pro the whole time, and I mean, you can't turn down that kind of money. I mean, he's gonna be, $4 million richer here in the next few weeks. I mean, you can't turn that money down. That's like Austin Riley. I mean, Austin Riley really wanted to come to Mississippi State, and if the Braves wouldn't have offered him, he might have made it to State. I don't know. I mean, that was kind of like okay, I can't turn down the Braves, and I can't turn down being drafted in the first round. So, but anyway, I mean, you can't turn down that stuff. But these other guys, they were kind of like, it's going to take that kind of money to get us to leave the situation. And that's what you need. You need guys like that. All the great teams that have come through here in Mississippi State have had some signing classes like that. That 97 crew, I think they were number one in the country whenever they came out. Eric Dubose and some of those guys. That was like the number one ranked signing class in the country. That team went to the College World Series. I look back at Jake Mangum's signing class. Some of those guys helped that 2016 team do what they did and win the SEC. Tanner Allen, Rowdy Jordan signing class. That was a really special group. We didn't know they were that special at the time, but turned out to be really stinking good when you think about the first round draft picks, Jordan Westberg and Justin Foscue, and Tanner Allen, Rowdy Jordan got drafted in the top 10 rounds, I believe. And then Josh Hatcher was in that class, just got drafted in the top 10 rounds out of Kennesaw State. So those groups are the ones that really kind of take you to the next level. You have to have those special connections within a team. Boy Scout, does MSU have a return trip to Oregon State? Good question. I would think so. I haven't looked at the future schedules. I can't remember. I would think they do, though. What's your projected lineup next year by position? Let's see. If I'm projecting Luke Hancock to come back, I'm going to have him at catcher. I'm going to have Hunter Hines at first base. I'm going to have Amani Leary at second. Shortstop, probably Lane Forsythe right now. At third base, we're going to go Slade Alford. Left field, it's got to be probably Colton Ledbetter. He could probably play center field. I'm trying to think about that other outfield spot. Kellen Clark and Colton Ledbetter are going to have two of those spots. And then the other outfield spot is kind of up for grabs. Aaron Downs could play possibly in left field if you have Ledbetter in center. Maybe Dakota Jordan if he really kind of comes out and is hitting like he can. And then there's that Ethan Groff unicorn kind of floating around if you're able to get him. So that would probably be my picks as of right now. The Pirate, who's the other left-handed pitcher from DeSoto County that we signed? Brock Tapper is the other guy you're referring to, I believe. So you got two really good DeSoto Central players coming in, and Tapper he was injured for a large part of the season, and he had a really good end of the year. His last two games in the playoffs against Madison Central and Northwest Rankin were really, really good. If you go back and look at those, I think he's a guy that he can be a left-handed matchup guy this year. He's certainly got the potential. Latham, RJ went undrafted. Yeah, RJ Yeager didn't get drafted. Kind of surprising. It's very similar to, a few years ago with Elijah McNamee didn't get drafted. I'm kind of surprised by that. McNamee didn't even get an undrafted free agent deal. What really upset me about that was the Mets or somebody drafted Felipe Franks, who didn't even play baseball, was playing quarterback for Florida. And it was just like, what? Like, there's people that play college baseball and put their blood, sweat, and tears in this, and you're wasting a pick on a guy that doesn't even play baseball. That was really annoying. Um, McNamee had been such a fan favorite. I mean, that was just kind of ridiculous. Yeager, he's a solid second baseman, and maybe they're saying that he doesn't have a true position. I don't know, but dude can certainly hit. He did it at Mercer, and he did it, and then came and proved it in the SEC. I mean, you would think somebody would take a chance. I'd be shocked if he didn't get a free agent deal. He's also like 22. I mean, he's up there in age. They put a lot of emphasis in that age. Houston Harding had a chance to come back, and he was like 22, 23, and he just had to go. He could have come back to Mississippi State for one more year, and I think possibly been an even better situation next year or this year, I guess. But decided to go just because you got to take that chance now. Boy Scout, are you going to Shelby County Fair this weekend? I don't think so. This year just doesn't really intrigue me as much. I usually go every year, but I really don't want to go this year. I don't know what it is. Last year was so good. They had some really good entertainment. My guy Hardy was playing. I mean, that was just electric. And you were coming off the buzz in the national championship. Everybody was really excited to kind of flaunt their Mississippi State baseball national championship stuff. And I mean, it was one of the better fairs I can remember. But this year I'm not feeling it. Last year I got stuck too. I got stuck twice in the parking lot. I really don't want to deal with that anymore. So, and I don't want to sweat any more than I have to. Currently building a house over here, so I'll probably just stay over here and kind of look after that. So I'm going to skip out this season. Steven, who are we not talking about that could be a surprise next season? Oh, let me see. Thinking about that signing class. One guy I'm really excited about in the signing class is Jackson Prep pitcher Will Gibbs. I think we're just not talking enough about him. And he's low to mid 90s, coming up there with his fastball. He had some incredible numbers this year at Jackson Prep, and they didn't play just terrible competition night in and night out. Won their 5th straight state championship, and he was a very large reason why. It would not shock me for him to come out there and have an impact similar to some of those guys at Ole Miss this year that were freshmen. Pirate, you building in Starkville? No, I'm actually in Choctaw County. I'm in between Matheson and Ackerman. My family's had land out here for over 100 years, and it got passed down to me, and I've always just kind of wanted to settle out here on our family land. I'm actually staying right now in my aunt's house, very nice house here. She was very nice to allow me to kind of stay here. We had to sell our house, obviously, to afford to do this because the market's so unreal right now. But we're excited. We're building right across the street from where we are right now. Beautiful country out here in Choctaw County. A lot of pine trees, and we got some good land out here. Boy Scout, are you a fan of LSU paying players in the portal? Well, I mean, it's kind of the nature of the beast right now. This is what college sports is becoming. I mean, Mississippi State's going to have to set up some NIL deals for some of these players, I'm sure, and it's just what it is right now. And I don't think LSU is the only people doing it. It's the name of the game, and if you don't get on board with it, you're going to get left behind because it's all about talent. You've got to come out here and get some of the best players to compete. You can't just develop guys anymore. Nobody really wants to redshirt or are kind of developed. They want playing time now, so this is going to be constant turnover of rosters and things like that. So it is what it is. That's just how it's going right now in college sports, and baseball is no different. Kevin, can you belt out another rendition of the Winston Academy fight song? I don't know if I can do it today. I don't know if I have the energy. I'm gonna have to do that another day. There, a lot of people didn't like that. So, Boy Scout, do you and Hey Dad plan to do a YouTube live show during the football season? We've talked about that. That's been a concept. It's going to have to go through Super Talk. So Super Talk is going to have to approve that. They're going to have to come to terms on that. I haven't heard an update on any of that, but I think it is somewhere in the future, because there's just so much money to be made on YouTube if you get enough subscribers and all that stuff. I mean, and like the ads and all that. I mean, you can expand out on YouTube. That's why I started doing this, which I still have a ways to go to start making any kind of money on it. But one thing I've really wanted to do, and I'm keep pushing Hey Dad on this. I really want to do a live show every Thursday night, especially during football season. I really want to do a live show at Two Brothers, and you guys can come check it out on a Thursday night, previewing the weekend. And basically, by live show, I mean we're live in person, not live on the radio or anything like that. We record the podcast live in front of y'all, and then put it on the podcast feed. I think that would be a really cool concept. Have it in the Cotton District. People are out on Thursday night, and people can come in. Maybe we can take some questions and things like that. But that's something that I really want to do, and I've really been pushing for that. But so far, hadn't gone anywhere with it. But that's something before all is said and done this summer, I would love to have that finalized. I think there's a few things that we have to do to get that to happen, but I don't think that Two Brothers would be upset about that. I think it'd be fun. Boy Scout Leach has a show on Thursday in QB Club at Starkville Country Club, but I think it would be a great idea. Well, I mean, you're not going to hit everybody. I think there would still be a good crowd at Two Brothers. I don't think the college group is going to go to Leach's show or the quarterback club. So, I think we could still hit a certain crowd. And we might do it another night, but Thursday night feels right to me for the college group and for people being around in town. There's going to be people starting to get around in town and some buzz around town. I think that would be cool. So, all right, any more questions? I'm about to have to jump off. I appreciate you guys. Again, go subscribe to this channel. Give me that subscription if you will. Doesn't cost you anything. It just updates you whenever I'm doing one of these or when I post a new video. And I don't just do these. I have press conferences and things like that, things that, people don't get a lot of times elsewhere. So, I mean, you got all that. If you're interested in music, I throw that in there sometimes. It might be bad, but just something that I like doing. So you can check that out as well. If you guys will do that, I really appreciate it. And share it if you want to, or whatever. I enjoy doing this just kind of on my downtime. I like talking to you guys. I like talking Mississippi State sports. And so I appreciate you guys. Just go subscribe, and I'd appreciate it. And go check out our site too, MississippiState.247sports.com. We've had a story on every single player drafted. We had, 9 stories on players drafted over the last 3 days. We had a live thread. I mean, we've been going nonstop. So we had double-digit stories coming off this draft. You can check out all of that stuff over there. We still have information coming in as we hear about players, whether or not they will sign, whether or not they're going to come to school, whatever. We got that stuff happening as well. So please go check that out. I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thanks for checking this out tonight and sticking around with me for a few minutes here. to do this. And I really appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a great rest of the week. I'll holler at you later.